Does thou believe in divination? My apologies, your highness. This maiden does not believe in superstitions. What a shame. Superstitions are quite grand. They give invigoration to one's life. The surrounding was silent. The crowd of 5,000 silently listened to the conversation between the two people before them. On one side stood a radiantly beautiful woman. While she was a noble who governed this city, she was also the one to have been defeated in this siege. On the other side sat a dark man. Wrapped in a black cloak and dressed up in similarly black clothing, he could only be described as a person of darkness. Peculiarly, he was plucking the petals of a flower. Petal by petal, the rose was plucked apart and fell to the floor with an ominous feeling. Thou had the opportunity to surrender before. I admit this. 4 times. The man spoke. I had dispatched an envoy presenting thee the opportunity to surrender 4 times. However, each time, thou had slit the throat of the envoy and sent back the corpse. Seeing how it has already come to this, let us speak truthfully. I desire to behead thy beautiful head and display it on a spear. The man muttered nonchalantly. If you were listening from an outside perspective, the way he spoke that last sentence was like as if he was simply commenting about how nice the weather was. In spite of that, if you were to look even slightly to the side, you would learn how wrong that feeling was. From goblins to orcs and to finally ogres, these bulky monsters were guarding the man without leaving even a single gap. These monsters could slaughter the 5,000 humans gathered here immediately if the man so ordered them to. For such a normal-looking man to give off such intimidating force, the noble woman could only gulp. The responsibility to protect the lives of the citizens were resting on her shoulders. To want to put my neck on a spear. Is he speaking the truth, or is he threatening me? Or perhaps he's simply testing me. Christiane Louise von Wolfesbrick, a heroine known as the Northern Pearl of the Empire. She had started a rebellion in the Demon Lord's army. It had been about half a year since the Empire was invaded by the demons, and there were humans that had still not completely accepted being ruled by monsters. It was thought that there was a considerably high chance of succeeding this revolution. But the man before her reacted before anyone else. In a matter of days, contact between other cities were cut, supply routes were plundered, and fortresses were captured. Once she was able to finally collect herself, her city had already fallen in only 4 months. So this is a demon lord. Christiane Louise bit her lips strongly. A member in an order of 72, who rules over 10,000 demons. The lord managing false alchemy and all rhetoric. Actor among actors. Praised as a demon lord of many faces. Dandelion. Demon Lord Dandelion. That was this man's name. Christiane Louise shuddered in terror. One wrong move and I'll be killed. In order to calm her shaking knees, Christiane Louise thought of her father's dying words. Always be dignified. That was right. Now was the time to behave like a noble and respond resolutely. I could sell my body if necessary. The rumor that the demon lord in front of her was a sex fiend was already widespread. Although she wasn't trying to brag, Christiane Louise was quite confident in her own appearance. If need be, she'd become a sex slave if it meant to protect her family name. Christiane Louise had made up her mind. Oh great demon lord. Sorry, but could you not call me that? The man cut her off, showing clear detest. What do you mean by, oh great demon lord? I feel so nauseous just hearing those words, that I wouldn't be surprised if my ears were to melt off this very instant. There's over 50 demon lords roaming this continent alone. I wonder if I'm the only great demon lord. Then, what should this one call your highness by? Just stick with your highness. Christiane Louise nodded in response. Yes, your highness. May I humbly inform your highness that there are 3 reasons to spare this one's life? Is that so? Tell me only one. The man plucked a petal and let the single red petal descend slowly. I do not have that much patience. A chill went down Christiane Louise's spine. The man was not even looking at her, and yet it felt as if hundreds of invisible floating eyes were staring down at her. I must be hallucinating. The inside of Christiane Louise's mouth became dry. It's nothing more than my mind playing tricks on me. She muttered in her mind the wise saying passed down the generations of her household. Oh ancestors! Do not respect injustice because of growth, and do not ignore justice because of youth. Like a traveler walking down a dark mountain path whilst relying on a poorly made torch, Christiane Louise was just barely able to muster up the courage to open her mouth by depending on the pride of her family. There are 6 cities remaining that are still supporting the rebellion. It is obvious that it'll take an immense amount of time and manpower to conquer them all. The man raised his shoulders. Indeed. I've been getting the urge to commit suicide just thinking about that. Your Highness. Gain control of them not with spears but with generosity. If your Highness shows tolerance and forgives us here, those other cities will naturally submit on their own. However, if your Highness treats us with cruelty, in fear of being treated the same, they'll rebel more violently. The man cuts her off. Is that what you mean to say? Yes, your Highness. As expected, he understood quickly. Christiane Louise could see a small glimpse of hope. The man in front of her wasn't simply a tyrannical demon lord. He was one of the more knowledgeable type. In short, words got through to him. The chance to stay alive might not be a hope in vain after all. Christiane Louise settled her fears. The silence continued. After plucking a rose bear, the man picked up another. Without saying a single word, he tore the entire flower off the stem. The red petals scattered like snow, falling slowly into a pile at the man's feet. Strip. A single word settled down over the surrounding. It was an incredibly normal tone. Christiane Louise could not understand the situation. She could only blink in surprise. Pardon. The man raised his head slowly. Christiane could see the man's eyes for the first time. It was as if pure black pupils were piercing into the deepest depths of her heart. Not thou. All 2,000 who had perished were thy people. In all of the continent, the only one who can take responsibility for all these lives is thee. The man sighed. A few minutes ago thou appealed to me to spare thy own life. Thou was not supposed to do that. Not for thy own life, but for the lives of all the people over there. Thou was supposed to plead to spare the lives of thy people. That is how a person takes responsibility. Why, your Highness? This one was Baroness Christiane Louise von Bulfesbrick. Thou art a kind and beautiful woman. To be more precise, a devilish person. I sentence thee a disgraceful death. The man stood from his seat. At once all of the monsters that were surrounding the area raised their weapons. The citizens became struck by fear and broke out into screams. Upon these people the demon lord's grave verdict fell. Thou shalt be stripped and humiliated by my soldiers. In front of all these civilians, at that. I, Dantelin, rank 71st and possessing the name of different faces, shall hereby sentence Christiane Louise shall be deprived of her title as a noble and face death as a mere commoner. Your Highness. Many lives shall come to an end here. Despair as I place the name of the one who pointlessly wasted the lives of others at the very bottom of my heart. The man left the stage indifferently. The sudden movement of the man's cloak caused a small gust on the floor, forcing the rose petals that had finally settled down to be scattered by the wind. From behind, Christiane Louise continued to shout, Your Highness. However, the man never turned back. This day, the woman known as the Northern Pearl was executed. Once again, the continent had to repeat the name of the Demon Lord, Dantelin. Demon Lord of different faces, rank 71st, Dantelin. How did it become like this? Damn it. This was not how I planned it. Christiane Louise appeared as a heroine in the game as well. Her role was to assist the protagonist, who was the hero, in political affairs. The ending where you are able to overcome the social gap between each other and finally score in marrying Christiane was considerably loved by fans. Obviously, I was one of those fans. If possible, I wanted to spare her. Seeing her in real life, she was much prettier than her illustrations in the game. My God. It was as if a goddess had descended from the heavens. In concern of being affected by her beauty, I had kept my head down. The only reason I continued to pluck roses was to hide my trembling emotions as well. 1. Execute. 2. Spare. As per usual, whenever an important decision approached, a choice box would rise up. A transparent box visible to only my eyes. Of course, I tried to select choice number 2 to spare them. But as the conversation progressed, the mood got stranger and stranger. Even if you're being shameless, how can one have this little shame? 2,000 people had died. 2,000. Despite the fact that a strange choice box would appear and a stat window shined in front of my eyes, this was nonetheless the cruel reality. In this reality, 2,000 people died because of one person's ambition. There wasn't even a slightest bit of guilt in Christiane Louise's attitude. My mood started to get cold. The excitement I felt when I first met in person the heroine that I've only seen through the computer monitor until now quickly subsided. Once I came to, I found myself ordering for the most disgraceful execution. I did it again. I let out a small sigh and spoke to a subordinate. Return to the grounds and behead the prisoners. Yes. Should we not make them suffer more? That's enough. This is enough of an example for the other cities. The subordinate received the order and walked back to the grounds. Shortly after. 1. Execute. 2. Spare. The writing shined brightly in mid-air. The words then broke apart into white particles and drifted. Although it felt they would disappear in any second, the particles abruptly moved together to form new words. A cruel and merciless decision. The continent is frightened by your ruthlessness. Infamy increased substantially. Then the words dispersed like petals. The information that my infamy rose again put me further into depression. How did it turn out like this? I could only ask myself. This wasn't it. Main point, I wanted to live a quiet life. Where did things go wrong? Surely my birth itself wasn't a mistake, right? Is that it? Life was irrational from the very start. I wanted to rub booby against Christiane. Not only Christiane, but I wanted to enjoy a fun life with the other heroines like Rome or the Emperor's daughter Elizabeth. Truth be told, I don't want to work at all. Seriously, why did I have to end up possessing a demon lord's body? Anyone is okay. Please, someone fix my broken life. Or at least give me a 1-month vacation. Speaking straightforward, my life was already over. If there was one thing to talk about in this life that had already ended, then that would be my father. My father was truly a trash-like man. There was a time where my father got drunk and harassed a girl. A female high school student at that. Even though I was dumbfounded, since it was my father, I knew that it was more than likely to happen. If you had to sexually harass someone, did you have to choose a female high schooler? Girls these days sure are developing quite splendidly. That was the response I got when I went to meet him. Let me correct myself. My father wasn't just trash, but food waste. That girl is younger than me by 5 years. Only by 5 years? Are you perhaps still in college? My father narrowed his brows. His expression was incredibly serious. I thought you were about 41 years old. If you look at me properly you'd know that I have a childlike face. Bahaha. Don't make me laugh. You've had a mustache since you were just an infant. If only killing intent could actually kill. My father's expression shifted and gave me a worried glance. Is your mother really upset? Which mother? I gave him a slight temper. There are at least 4 people I can call mother. I'm not really sure which one you're referring to. I'm talking about your mother. I let out a sigh. I'll say this now. Harem is a crime. It wasn't enough to make a bunch of lovers, but to also have a child here and there as well, that was inexcusably the worst. The person concerned may be fine. But in the position of the child, I wanted to kill myself. Even after the age of 40, the mothers continued the bloody competition and feud over my father. My father was constantly indecisive and never made a choice. As a result, the ones to come to harm were the children. The only ones dying in the struggle between mothers were innocent little us. If you were smarter then wouldn't your father pay more attention to me? You have to get first place in your whole school no matter what. Do you understand how it feels to hear this kind of thing every single day? Circumstances for me were a bit better though since I was male. My little sisters were really pitiful. In order to gain even a little bit more affection, they had to flatter him each and every time they could. In the position of myself who had to watch all this happen, my impression of my own father was the worst. The chances of something good about my father coming out of my own mouth would be asking for the impossible. Listen carefully. I'm going to tell you slowly and exactly what you should do from here on out. Nothing bad has come from listening to my advice before, right? Naturally. I'm ready to listen carefully to whatever you have to say. Then first, do your best to try to stay in prison for as long as possible and not come out. My father furrowed his brows. That's a bit different direction of advice I was hoping for. Do not come out of prison and just stay there forever. Until you die. If the word dismissal starts to float around or something, do not latch onto it. End your regret-filled life in a cell. I've never doubted that my son was dutiful up until now, but I'm starting to have my suspicions. Son. Is that really the best option? My mother is trying to kill you. Silence. My father tilted his head. Are you saying that she's angry enough to might kill me? No, I mean exactly what I said. She is trying to kill you. My father pressed his head into his hands. He had finally grasped the seriousness of the situation. You've been calling my mother by some weird word like tsundere for a long time now, but I'll tell you this now. My mother is a yandere. Resent yourself for marrying someone you most shouldn't have while also having multiple wives. But when she looked at me with those bloodthirsty eyes, my body would tingle. That's your mother's charm. Be great if you just died already. I muttered unintentionally. I do not believe in God. There's only one reason for that. If God really existed, then the man in front of me would have been smited long time ago. My father was a satanic person, an infectious germ that turned the people around him into atheists. I called it the human trash virus. I didn't know she was a high schooler in the first place. No, I groped that person's butt not even knowing it was female. It's unfair. Then you lifted that skirt thinking it was a man. Congratulations. It's fortunate that you were finally able to discover your actual sexual preference at that late of age. If you had realized 25 years sooner, then the world could have been more peaceful, families could have been more tranquil, and my life could have been smoother. I had 7 bottles of soju, so I wasn't sane. Are you ever sane? I stood up from the seat. I spoke while sullenly looking down at my father. Never bring up alcohol while in court. If they put that into consideration, then your sentence will most likely be shortened. The day you leave prison, my mother will be waiting for you with a knife. My beloved son. Yes. Go ahead and speak, my not beloved father. You must make good choices in life. I snorted. When you're the one saying that, that sounds incredibly persuasive. Right. I'll come visit whenever I have the time, so make sure to behave. No matter who saw, my father was a failure of a husband. There was no room for sympathy. However, he was not a failure as a parent. Starting from me, my 6 siblings and I all were able to live wealthy lives. This was an incredible achievement. Also, while a person lives their life, be it as a husband or a parent, as long as they are successful in even one category, I think they're admirable. This way of thought still has not changed. Stay in prison forever. My father gladly listened to my last advice. In the end, it became so. 4 days later, my father had passed away because of a heart attack. I'm completely exhausted. After sorting out my boxes and furniture, I lied on my bed. For the last month I had faced hell. This was not a joke. If a demon could have seen my unsightly and miserable figure, then even they would have felt so much sympathy for me that they'd end up ascending as an angel. I folded my fingers down one by one. The funeral is over. Set all the real estate in order. Passed over the foundation. I roughly threw away everything I needed to throw away from life. Give up on the inheritance. As soon as my father passed away, I had dropped this bombshell. My mother fainted and my half-siblings made a commotion. My second half-little sister was especially terrible. She clung onto me until my pants tore. However, my will was as firm as the snow piled at the very top of the Himalaya mountains. If you want to break my stubbornness, then you need to forward global warming by 600 years. Unfortunately, my mothers and siblings did not have the capability to immediately raise the carbon dioxide exhaust quantity around the world by 70 times the current amount at that time. If brother retires, we'll all be ruined. Big brother is a stupid idiot. I'm never contacting you again. Finally, once my second half-little sister gave up, I escaped. Phew. A smile of satisfaction floated on my face. To live the rest of one's life is to live free from worldly cares. There's no point in pretending to be something you're not and buying things like a high noble. I'm too busy to go crazy and spend money on everything. While a few of my siblings were pleased that they had become the head of a company at such a young age, my second half little sister followed up with the statement, even if we end up ripping his brother's ear off, we can't let him go. Our household will be ruined within 6 years without him. Which I felt strongly for because I knew she was right. Okay. I've dealt with everything. I'm truly free now. Thank you, Father, for passing away at an appropriate time. This honest feeling may be an incredibly undutiful and immoral statement to say to one's parent, and it shakes my conscience by 1 milligram, but if you consider the large amount of crap that my father had left behind on my life, the already little amount of conscience that remains seems to have vanished on its own. I will never forget the moment he used his own son as a shield in order to avoid the knife being swung by my mother, a painful midsummer memory from my second year of elementary school. Even if I die, all things considered, I've already won the game of life. Currently, in my bank account was the large sum of over 500 million won. Just because I gave up on the inheritance doesn't mean I didn't fill my back pockets. I can enjoy the remainder of my life without having to ever work. Yup. Not the entirety of my life, but what remains. I do not mean the definition to keep on living, but simply the meaning of what's left. I purely desired for only this. I got up from my bed and with a brush I wrote in large writing on a piece of parchment. For the next 50 years, this will be the terms that'll lead me for the remainder of my life. 1. Do not work. 2. Do not make friends. 3. Do not get married. Just like I, Zegma. Beautiful? I was moved by my own writing. I wonder if when Pythagoras discovered the law of mathematics, he was as deeply touched as I am now. First, do not work. This was stupidly obvious. I've heard that there are some people in the world who enjoyed fruits of labor in their life. Thankfully, I'm not one of those perverted masochists. Second, do not make friends. This was also obvious. There are only backstabbers and potential backstabbers in the world. Friendship is merely a vain dream, a virtual image, a fantasy. I won't take any counterarguments. Third, do not get married. This was important. My father had relations with 5 women. After having watched a live romance drama starring 6 people since I was a mere child, I've come to a grave and serious conclusion. Marriage is an insane act. Something like true love are all bullcrap lies. Love is merely a way of murder that has become surprisingly gentler. As a result, it's possessive desire and sexual desire. Of course, grown-up members of society might have a different opinion than I. That's okay. Be satisfied with your bright and beautiful marriage life. However, if maybe, just maybe, you end up separating from your partner, compared to your marriage life, so much more beautiful days will lie ahead of you. I'll guarantee it. You have my word. For starters, the dangers of being stabbed by a knife disappears. This alone already seems like a huge benefit, don't you think? Yes. I'm a pessimistic human. I wasn't like this from the very beginning. Believe me. Originally, I was highly positive. The world was beautiful and the righteousness in my chest flopped around like a just-caught mackerel. To be specific, I was like this until a month ago. However, after having witnessed my mother's do a 101 and 1 second 1 death match in the middle of the funeral, I politely recycled my hopes and dreams into the trash. That's so. This world is tragic. Even if you're vexed, what can you do? This is the truth. The carbon dioxide exhaust rate won't go down, China will grasp capital over the entire world, Justin Bieber will receive the Nobel Prize in Literature, and in 122 years you'll be dead, I'll be dead, we'll all be dead. Oh, I'll also tell you just in case that adorable pet of yours will get hit by the front wheel of a bicycle and die. I'm sorry to tell you the news. But what can you do? This is the truth. If you're done being sad, then drink a beer. To start off my carefree life, I went to the convenience store and bought 60 cans of beer. The part-timer at the convenience store gave me a look as if asking, "Excuse me, it's not of my concern, but is your life okay like this?" I thanked the girl's deep consideration and coolly swiped my card. So what? My card has damn 500 million won. 500 million won is strong. Take that. If you have a problem, then come at me. Son. Whatever you choose. Whatever you choose, you must choose better than me. I wonder if it was because of the beer. I recalled something unpleasant. A kind of trauma. I opened a second can of beer and muttered. I succeeded in running away, father. Those were my last words to my father. I stayed in the corner of my home and didn't come out. Goodbye, labor. Goodbye, world. I'll be going to the world across the monitor. Adieu. 2 months passed in a blink of an eye. I've conquered the computer games I couldn't enjoy for the past 4 years. Zegma, how is that possible in 2 months? This is life. I was silently moved to tears. I've been only consuming convenience store-packed lunches, so my current figure was getting close to the border of that of a Homo sapien gorilla. Trash was littered on all 4 sides of me. The desk with my monitor on top was especially impressive. The empire of empty cup ramens and the republic of empty beer cans were conquering the desk, continent, and having their own world war while drawing all kinds of geometrical national borders. In this world, I'm what you'd call an absolute god. If it's unfavorable for the empire, then I'd add a cup ramen. If it's unfavorable for the republic, then I'd add a beer can. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was thanks to me that balance was able to be kept in this continent. At that moment, a notification popped up on my monitor. Turing. An email arrived. Moving my mouse over, I clicked to check it. Thank you for enjoying our company's game, Dungeon Attack. In order to improve for the next expansion, we are doing a survey. Participants will be able to gain the chance to be a beta tester for the next installment. It was a normal email. My email address was probably subscribed when I bought the game. Right when I was about to delete the mail, I hesitated. Next expansion, huh? A standard dungeon capturing RPG, Dungeon Attack. It was one of the games that I enjoyed during the 2 months. Become a hero and defeat the demon lords. The difficulty was a bit strange, so it was incredibly challenging. First run, I could barely defeat the mid-boss. Second run, third run, and finally on the 16th run, after tedious grinding, I was narrowly able to win against the final boss. There's no business in grinding. My hero character got stronger after each run. In the NPC's perspective, I probably seemed like a fraud and a cheat, but what can you do? Life was irrational from the very start. Some starts life with high stats while others don't. Click. I accepted the survey with a click of my mouse. It'll probably ask me questions like, was the difficulty reasonable? Was there any inconvenience with the interface? Boring questions like that. Regardless, I was able to spend an enjoyable amount of time on Dungeon Attack. I'll play along. A new page opened up on my monitor screen. 1. In the end, I prefer small girls. 2. In the end, I prefer mature women. Speechless. A completely unpredictable Mr. Question has appeared. I grasped onto my mind that went blank for a moment. What is this, a small joke? Are proper questions going to come out after this? After thinking for a moment, I chose number 2. If you were someone with common sense, then it was only appropriate to select number 2. Everyone, Lolita complex is a mental illness. On the white screen, the second question appeared. 1. In the end, I get excited when I get hit by someone. 2. In the end, I get excited when I hit someone. What kind of survey is this? I shouted at the monitor. The periods plus exclamation mark at the end of the sentence made it feel pointlessly vivid. It looked as if you were confessing your secret sexual desires, doesn't it? I glared at the monitor with a disgusted look. For now, I selected number 2. To be hit or to hit. If I had to choose between the two, then I could only choose the latter. I've heard that there was a group of people in the world who felt pleasure from pain, but thank the heavens, I'm not a pervert. 1. I prefer a low difficulty. 2. I prefer a high difficulty. After that, I got normal quality questions. They most likely placed the weird questions in the front to gain the survey's attention. To compliment them for being smart, or to complain that they put too much thought into this survey. 1. I solved my problems with strength. 2. I solved my problems with knowledge. Without any hesitation, I chose number 2. I stopped trying to solve my problems through force since the time I got beat up by the girl sitting next to me in kindergarten. People called humans like me a refined pacifist. 1. I gain benefit from keeping other people's secrets. 2. I gain pleasure from using other people's secrets. Once again, with no hesitation, I chose number 2. During kindergarten, once I obtained the information that the girl sitting next to me wet her bed every morning, I took advantage of it as much as possible. After having done so, I learned the greatness of information. Diplomatic studies call this kind of politics armed neutrality. 1. Friendship means to go forward together towards the same goal. 2. Friendship means a friend who hasn't betrayed you yet. Ooh. I don't know who it was, but they need to give a round of applause to the staff who made option number 2. Now that I think about it, I've been only choosing the second option. It must mean that number 1 points to abnormal and number 2 points to normal. I think about 30 questions had passed. A question with a different format was displayed for the first time. Do you know how this world ends? Yes. No. I stopped my mouse. It was a question purposely made abstract. It was a sentence that only players who very faithfully played the game could understand. Dungeon attack. The hero subjugates the demon lords. A simple structure. However, in the end, the world probably arrives at destruction. The reason why the word probably was included was simple. The game did not kindly tell you what happened to the world after the ending. This was merely the conclusion I came to on my own while going through the campaign. In Dungeon Attack, demon lords are owners of magical energy, people with a massive amount of magical energy condensed into them. What happens if all these people are killed off? The magical energy will overflow. Like as if many reservoirs collapse at the same time and cause a flood. The hero killed off the demon lords in order to protect mankind, and as a result the balance of magical energy collapsed. Then, contrary to what was intended, the end of mankind and the destruction of the world. This was what I thought to be the true ending of the game. Thank you very much, protagonist. Thank you very much, player. Yet, we must apologize that due to your efforts the world was destroyed. No hopes or dreams. That's why I liked it. A pessimistic world outlook, it suited my taste. I spoke the words yes and clicked my mouse. As if it was calculating something, it took some time before the next question appeared. The sentence to appear on screen was abstract again. If it were you, could you change the ending? I wonder. To protect mankind and to also not slaughter demons. In other words, to bring peace between the two races. According to the setting, humans and demons have been going at each other for nearly 3,000 years. It'd probably be easier to make the leader of Islamic extremists reconcile with the President of the United States of America. Would I be able to do such a thing? I started thinking. Then thought some more. And yes. The sound of a click rang, and at the same time, shock. A bright white light shined from my monitor screen. This was the last scenery I could remember. A bell chimed somewhere. No, it could have been the sound of an explosion. The feeling of the world around me being flipped as if my skull was being expanded on all 4 sides. My hearing went numb and everything felt distant. My vision kept blinking. I couldn't move my eyelids on my own accord. As if someone else was opening and closing my eyes for me. My conscience stopped. Then. The tutorial shall now begin. Difficulty set to lunatic, highest possible setting. Start. Then I opened my eyes. The ceiling broke and fell. A large rock landed right in front of my face. What? I quickly gained my senses. Instinctively, I took a step back, however, with a thud, my back bumped against something. It was a wall. Carefully looking around myself, I realized I was in a pitch-black cavern. I had gone to see a stalactite cave before during a school trip before. From what I could see, the ceiling now was 2 to 3 times higher than that cave. It was so high up that I could just barely see the top. I couldn't possibly imagine how far away the dark mouth of the cave was. I killed my breath. Why was I here? How did I get here? A loud siren rang in my head. My conscience instantly went cold. Whenever I found myself in an unpredicted situation, my head would cool down in order to compose myself. It was because of the trauma I had experienced when I was young. I had been kidnapped 3 times in my life. The memory from those times forced open my skull and poured in ice-cold water as if telling me to stay on my toes. Do not scream, that'll only irritate the kidnappers. Talk to yourself quietly, you can confirm your situation this way. Behavior procedures prepared like a manual. Like a special forces unit listening to orders while facing terrorists, my conscience more than gladly followed the guidelines carved into my memory. I was sitting in my room a moment ago and using the computer. It was 7 p.m. Drank 2 cans of beer. For dinner I had cup ramen. Little by little, my breathing became calmer. There was no problem with my memory. It at least meant that this wasn't a drug-induced kidnapping. There were no drugs. With just this, the situation was reasonably favorable. It meant that the kidnapper had the intent to talk with me. That's why the kidnapping when I was in my 3rd year of elementary school was serious. The motive then was to plainly obtain my body. I had to unconditionally keep my mouth shut. No reason whatsoever. Okay. Next. I checked my senses. In order: vision, scent, hearing, taste, and touch. Without rushing, I had to make sure my senses were working properly. The location appears to be a cave. Definitely a cave. It's very dark. Doesn't seem like my vision got worse. Rock, paper, scissor. I moved my fingers to make the shapes. I could see the forms properly. Good. My vision was fine. The problem was scent. A foul, nauseating smell. The smell of blood vibrated around me. I wonder if it was because I had suddenly found myself in an unfamiliar environment, but I wasn't paying attention to the smell until now. Now that I've realized it, the revolting smell was so intense that it felt like it got past my nostrils and shook my very brain. It was a scent I had smelled 3 or 4 times in my life. A scent which I never wanted to smell again. The smell of blood and intestines. Corpses were spread throughout the cave. There were human corpses that were swollen as if they were drowned, bodies with slit throats, and even bodies with limbs bent in the wrong direction. Yuck. If this cave was one of those art exhibitions, then the curator would undoubtedly be an absurdly perverted sadist. As if triumphantly displaying that humans could die in this many ways. The fact that the cave was dark was the only solace, since the corpses were comparatively hard to see. Is this place supposed to be the mystery of the human body? Damn it. I had to get out of here quickly. I put my right foot forward and fell just like that. My ankle was broken. The entire bone was broken. It wasn't something like an adorable sprain. SHT. I unintentionally let out a curse. I had to conclude that I couldn't run or walk. The pain wasn't ordinary. If the kidnapper approached now, then it was impossible to escape. Perhaps they broke my ankle on purpose. Keeping safety measures. This was probably why they didn't use drugs. Ha! I sat down in defeat. I was regretfully checkmated. Why did they kidnap someone like me? I couldn't understand. I left all the fortune to my siblings. If it was 2 months ago, then maybe, but there's no point of kidnapping me right now. Surely they don't mean to take me as hostage and threaten my siblings. Foolish. I don't know about someone else, but the person currently leading our household was my second half little sister. She could manage the household with composure, although not as good as I did. You'll get hurt if you underestimate my sibling just because she's young. Who? I could only sigh when thinking about who the culprit was. There were plenty of people spread across the world who could want revenge against me. There were also surprisingly a lot of fellows who still had a grudge against my father as well, but wanted to let it out on me instead. That's why I wanted to wipe my hands clean of everything. It was then that I heard a hurried voice coming from the other side of the cave. I found him. The Demon Lord is here. Demon Lord. It was a name that had absolutely no connections with me. For some reason the voice was directed towards where I was. I'm confused. I had been called a devil a considerable amount of times in my life, but this was the first time I had been called a demon lord. It might be a type of secret code. Stay right there. We'll kill you if you move. The people came in like wolves. The men were holding edged weapons like knives and axes. There's no way I couldn't be bewildered by this. I shot up both my arms. I surrender. Get down, you bastard. Without warning, the other man grabbed my head and slammed it to the ground. They were violent with me even though I told them that I surrendered. Ack. A rock that was lying on the ground sharply stabbed against my cheek. Keep your damn face down. Stay like that till we say otherwise. I almost let out a shout of pain, but I was able to hold it back. Loud noises irritated kidnappers. During a kidnapping, even if you're in pain, you must not scream. Third year of elementary school, I didn't know anything and kept on wailing. After being beat until 5 of my teeth were broken, I had learned to be silent. Silently. Politely. It may seem stupid, but this was the proper attitude to have towards a kidnapper. I caught him. Riff of Jelson has captured the Demon Lord. Ooh. Our great and handsome captain, Riff. You aren't planning to take all the bounty on your own, are you? The men started chatting in excitement. I held my breath and listened to their conversation. Of course not. I'll share with everyone equally. Kiki. Look at this. This demon lord looks just like a caterpillar. Looks good with his head on the ground. Let's kill him already. What do you mean, kill him? There are things we still haven't asked him yet. Someone kicked my side. It wasn't a genuine hit but more done jokingly, regardless that alone was pretty painful. But just in case, we should break him. Friends. Let us beat the demon lord into a reasonably sized pulp. Merciless violence showered down upon me. 10 people were kicking me. I desperately held back my screams. More than 5 minutes had passed before the kicking started to subside. Good. That's enough. Guys. Our handsome boss said to stop. Kiki. The violence finally stopped. While I was breathing roughly, one of the men spoke to me as a representative. Well now, Honorable Demon Lord. There's one thing that we wish to ask you. Where's all the money in this castle? To tell you the truth, us village folk are in real need of money. As expected, I was kidnapped for money. Wait, but they've been keep using words that I'm not familiar with. This was something that I had to confirm. There was a chance that they were mistaking me for someone else. What do you mean by Demon Lord? When I opened my mouth, I let out a groan. My lips were torn. Good. Very good. The man insinuated. Despite being hit so much, you're still able to display such a nature. An excellent stance. Kiki. I don't hate that kind of thing, Your Honorable Demon Lord. With a rough hand the man grabbed my hair. Ack. I was forced to raise my face. I made eye contact with the man in front of me. The man had bent his body forward and was looking down at me. His entire face was covered in a brown beard. A darkish mushroom that grew in a public bathroom that hadn't been cleaned for over 5 years, that was what his beard looked like. In simpler words, frighteningly dirty. But my friends here don't have as much patience as me. What can I help you with? Your Honor. We don't desire to use pointless violence. That's convincing. Instead of wasting each other's energy, let us trade. Tell us where the treasury is and we will not kill Your Honor immediately. We won't cut your arms or legs off. And, of course, we won't cut your precious horn off either. Think carefully. In truth, we're the ones at a loss in this trade. Yeah, at a great loss. They broke out into laughter. It was laughter of people who had a rough birth. I waited for the mood to settle before speaking again. Always courteously. Making sure to not irritate their mood. I asked a question. I'm sorry, but what do you mean by horn? Ah. What are you asking? The man placed his hand on the back of my head. This. I'm talking about this. The man had grabbed something on my head. My head that should only have hair. There, something long was attached all the way to my skull. I felt the back of my head. There was certainly something hard there. The shape was, as the man had said, in the shape of a horn. This. What could this creation be? I gazed forward with blank eyes. Don't tell me. Before I was kidnapped, no, before I lost conscience. I was responding to a game survey on my computer. When I opened my eyes in this cavern I had heard a faint voice. I'm certain it whispered the tutorial shall now begin. I ignored it because I thought it was some nonsense from my dream. The man had called me Demon Lord. There was something like a horn actually attached to the back of my head. Game. Tutorial. Demon Lord. These three words pointed at one possibility. Fortunately or unfortunately, my mind quickly came to a conclusion. Now, Your Honor, Demon Lord Dandelion, will ask you only one more time. I couldn't accept the answer. The common sense, experience, and knowledge I had gained throughout my entire life completely denied the conclusion. However, as if laughing at my escape from reality, an alarm rang. Turing. White words appeared in mid-air. 1. Accept Adventurer Captain Riff's offer. 2. Decline Adventurer Captain Riff's offer. I was at a loss for words. Undeniable proof had presented itself right before me. Will you accept our offer? Or will you just die here? Wow. You can't get choices as clean as this. Kiki. Hurry and pick, oh honorable Demon Lord. The man gave an ill-tempered laugh. It was certain that the man couldn't see the floating words. Is it like that? Is it like that? Is it like that? My monologue continued and echoed in my drifting away conscience. Like an actor who forgot his lines on stage and kept repeating his last spoken line. I bit my lips. The taste of blood spread throughout my mouth. The vividly raw taste brought my conscience back to reality. In front of me was a barbaric man with a broad grin on his face. Willing or not, I'm a demon lord in the world of Dungeon Attack. My head went cold, as if time was flowing slowly. Mr. Demon Lord's response is a bit slow. I gazed at the man who had just spoke. It wasn't only this man who had skipped shaving. The other people around us also had beards. It might be normal for these men to not shave. Their outfits are old. Way too old. To be precise, I'd say about 400 years old. Around the time Henry IV of France fought lively against the Roman Catholics, perhaps. The clothes looked similar to the ones worn by the people during the French Wars of Religion. They were outfits that should have been sent straight to the museum. But no matter how you looked at these men, they didn't look like they worked at a museum. Are you really planning to not answer? Situations that couldn't be understood until now were starting to be explained by assumptions. For example, as if a mysterious phenomenon was finally explained by the laws of physics. Oh, Your Honor Dandelion. Demon Lord Dandelion. These people have been calling me Dandelion. That was the name of the demon lord who showed up in Dungeon Attack. There are a total of 72 demon lords who appear in that game. Amongst them, Dandelion was ranked 71st. He was that close to last place. Correspondingly, his level was also miserably low. In the first place, he was like a trash mob made for beginners. Even a person playing computer games for the first time could beat him on the first run. If I had to compare it with another game, then he was like a rabbit in the beginner field. As long as you knew how to click your mouse, then you could defeat the rabbit. Dandelion was the same. I should also add, after the first run, Dandelion doesn't appear at all in the game. He was removed in case that players got annoyed. Imagine telling a level 20 warrior to go back to the beginner field and hunt a rabbit. It'd be boring. Dandelion was a rabbit that you didn't feel like fighting again. And if I'm correct, I'm currently possessing that Dandelion. There was a bitter taste in my mouth. How do I get out of the evil hands of these adventurers? I'm currently captured by humans. If this goes on, I'll probably get my head cut off or be taken to the city and executed. No matter how much I strained my brain, I could only think of bad ends. Even if I proclaimed I'm not Dandelion, I'd be grateful if I even got a sneer in response. I couldn't rely on Demon Lord Dandelion's ability. Let me rephrase that. I could only rely on my own ability in order to overcome this obstacle. If you're testing my patience right now, the treasury is in Minlik-dong. I made my resolution. Adventurer, Cowardly Looter, Riff Hoffman. Empire Calendar, Year 1505, Month 4, Day 4. Dandelion's Demon Lord Castle. Looter Riff. That was my nickname. Despite being an adventurer, I didn't hunt demons, but instead, looted other adventurers. That's how I got the nickname. Well, let them call me whatever they want. The people who honestly hunt demons are the fools, aren't they? The ones who live skillfully in the world are the ones who benefits. Using common sense, people who fought monsters like orcs and goblins are idiots. I'm saying this very seriously and sincerely. To live a not sincere life and become a corpse, or to live a sincere life and become a cowardly looter. If I had to choose between the two, then of course I'd choose the latter. Will I still choose the latter if I die and become reincarnated? I won't ever die. Kiki. Regardless, light was finally shining down on my looter career. Half a month ago, I obtained the map of Demon Lord Dantelin's castle. I was lucky. There was a girl too pretty to be rotting away in some lowly village. I was going to assault her a little bit, but, while presenting me this map, she pleaded, "I'll give you this, so please spare me." She was a girl with beautiful red hair. Of course assaulting a virgin is wrong. But I really like doing bad things. I told you already. I'm a looter. I don't only loot the pockets of dead adventurers, but the virginity of all the young women in the world as well. Personally, I'd prefer to be called virginity looter. Something like the looter of virginities sounds like a cool title. It's good because it sounds romantic. Thanks to this map, I was able to gather a bunch of random adventurers. Dandelin was one of the weakest demon lords and there was most likely no monsters in the castle. As long as we knew where to find him, then it'd be easy to capture him. We used an artifact that detected magical energy to search inside of the cavern. We wandered the dark cave for about 4 hours, but our efforts weren't in vain. We were able to capture the demon Lord Dandelin. Amazing. The map was real. Look at this. This demon lord looks just like a caterpillar. My comrades were chuckling while holding the demon lord down. Looks good with his head on the ground. Let's kill him already. What do you mean, kill him? I gave the person who spoke a vulgar look. You could gain a higher reward if you captured the demon lord alive. Also there was something we still hadn't asked him yet. Where the treasure was. Gain whatever information we could get. That was common sense. First things first, we beat the demon lord up and then asked him where the treasury was. But this demon lord, his reaction was strange. He'd suddenly stare at an empty space and he'd narrow his brows and lower his chin as if he was in deep thought. What is this? Is he an idiot? I vaguely thought demon lords were supposed to be ghastly tyrants, but what is this small fry? Well, since he was a small fry, someone like me could capture him. I have no complaints. I love small fries. I'd gladly decline demon lords like Barbados or payment. Mr. Demon Lord's response is a bit slow. Are you really planning to not answer? I snickered and tapped the demon lord's cheek. Oh, Your Honor Dandelin. It was then. It was for a mere moment, but the demon lord had a dreadfully spine-chilling gaze. I blinked a couple of times and after doing so, the same minor small fry-looking demon lord was in front of me again. Huh. The atmosphere changed for a brief moment. Was I seeing things? Oh well. Treasure. Treasure was more important. Let's keep pressing this demon lord. The treasury is in Minlik Dong. The other party furrowed their eyebrows. Mayarok, what? Minlik Dong. It's at the Minlik Dong. I told them the location of the treasury for the second time. Honestly, I just said the name of whatever neighborhood that came to mind. How was I supposed to know where the treasury of the demon lord's castle was? And if I sincerely answered, I don't know where it is, I'd probably get a blade flying my way. For now, I had to say whatever I could in order to gain their interest. I had to carefully pay attention to the men's reactions. Milik, Muraku town, the damn pronunciation is strange. Do you not know of it? Here, I'll write it down. Offering to write it down, I lowered my body and wrote on the cavern floor. I didn't have any writing utensils, but I did shed a lot of blood. Dipping my finger in my own blood, I smoothly wrote the word. First line in Korean. Second line in Chinese characters. I slightly turned my line of sight to see their reaction. Hey, bring the torch closer. I have no idea, were there letters like this? They faced each other and started talking. None of us here even know how to read. Yeah, but the shape is completely different. Okay. I generally understood the principle of the language. I currently heard everything they said in Korean. However, when I wrote the words, they couldn't understand. In conclusion, just because I heard everything in Korean didn't mean they also heard in Korean as well. There were two possibilities. 1. The pronunciation was the same but the letters were different. Or 2. Both the pronunciation and letters were different but for some reason only I perceived everything in Korean. Which one was the answer? I decided to test it immediately. It's natural for this to be unfamiliar to you gentlemen. This is ancient demon language. In order to fully secure the treasury, I had specifically used ancient demon language to magically seal the treasure. Magic. Yes. The vault will not open to those who do not understand the language. The men made a commotion. The answer was revealed by that conversation. We were currently talking in a language completely different from Korean in terms of both pronunciation and letters. How do I know this? Because I had spoken in foreign languages just now. First sentence in English, second sentence in German, third sentence in Chinese, and fourth sentence in Japanese. And yet, these men understood me fully. I don't know by what principle, but the conversation was automatically being translated. Mr. Demon Lord. Do we, need to understand that ancient demon language thing to open the vault? Yes. Of course. The man narrowed his brows. Right now this person was trying to kill me. He promised to spare my life if I told him the location of the secret vault, but that was a big fat lie. You could tell someone was lying shamelessly by their face. So accordingly, I had to give them a reason to keep me alive. All right, honorable demon lord. I like this fair trade. The man fell for my lie nicely. I think we can be good friends. So, where's this Muraku town, exactly? These guys are pronouncing it incorrectly. There's a secret passage where I was originally at. The demon lord's quarters. There was nothing there when we checked. That's not so. In my quarters, it will only recognize me and open. There's a secret passage that only opens when I place my hand on it. A magical device. Okay. The man grabbed my arm and forced me up. A horrible pain spread from my right ankle. I couldn't hold back my scream this time. Ah! Oh! Your leg is messed up. The man clicked his tongue. New guy. You support his honor, Dantalin. Roger that, Captain. A young man, who I assumed to be the new guy, came over to support me. He had a dagger attached to his belt. The adventurer group captain then shouted. Let's get moving, boys. The group of 10 adventurers moved forward through the cave. These men seemed to know where the demon lord's quarter was. I was lucky since I had no idea where it could possibly be. If they had told me to lead them to my quarters, I'd probably have died on the spot. A bell rang with a turring sound. 1. Accept adventurer Captain Riff's offer. 2. Decline adventurer Captain Riff's offer. The first choice shined brightly and then new words rose up. The choice wasn't selected because I thought of selecting it, but rather, it was selected by my actual actions. Overcame the crisis with cunning eloquence. Warning. Actions taken during the tutorial will henceforth affect your stats. I got past the crisis. In other words, it meant that if I didn't lie to them then I really would have been in a fatal situation. The unnecessary remark sent a chill down my spine. These people were not joking around. To live or to die? That was the question. I barely got past the first obstacle. By any means, I had to stay alive. The adventurer group continued to walk through the cavern. How about just killing him now? Yeah. We aren't some group of thieves. Instead of wasting time searching for a hidden vault, we could end it here neatly. I don't know about you guys, but I agree with the captain. Nothing bad about getting a bit more money. I could hear the adventurers talking up ahead. I don't care if you're going to discuss whether I live or die, but could you at least speak in a voice that I couldn't hear? It's not that hard. They have no manners. Hey. Even if his leg is sprained, isn't he a bit too slow? Like I said, he's probably stalling. They went as far as to flat out make sarcastic remarks. The level of these adventurers that had captured me weren't very good. They radiated poorness. The blade of their weapons were jagged. It was proof that they didn't properly maintain their gear. In the game standard, they'd be ranked F, the lowest adventurer group. They were around that level. they'd get wiped by around 20 goblins. Although, not being able to put under command those goblins that are spread almost everywhere was Demon Lord Dantelin's level. Your Honor, Demon Lord. My comrades are a bit impatient. The man called Riff informed me with a snicker. I lowered my head. I apologize. I'll try harder to walk faster. A nice and fast response. That's good. He was talking to me like I was inferior. I had now decided. I will definitely destroy that proud face of his. I'll drag this man's face in the mud. I won't go easy on him even if he begs for mercy later. Look forward to it, Riff. Us adventurers have an occupational disease. It seems they're suspicious that Your Honor is trying to trick us. That you're stalling for time to do something to us. That's impossible. I immediately replied. There was no gain from telling them the truth. Now, time to start the performance. I used to have subordinates as well. Goblins, imps, orcs, nothing special, but they were still my precious subordinates. However, before you gentlemen, groups of adventurers had assaulted this castle 3 times in a row. The edge of my eye became wet. I had the ability to cry on command. It required a little trick. It was a special move that my little sisters had taught me. You gentlemen are the 4th to arrive at my castle. My subordinates are all already dead. Even the little ones that have been with me for over 30 years. All of them. Huh? Riff panicked. Surely, Your Honor, you aren't crying now, are you? N number cry. I would never. I spoke like a child who was desperately trying to hold back his tears. It's just that amongst them, there was a nanny who had taken care of me since I was a mere infant. Yes. She looked like an orc. That's because she was an orc. But she took care of me sincerely. I even called her mother. A week ago, she was pierced in the chest with a spear by an adventurer and died. Pitiful crying echoed throughout the cave. Well, what should I say? That's quite unfortunate. You have my condolences. She held me until the very end.
Like and subscribe.